Hello and welcome to the Konvergent Video Series for the week of November 9th. Top three things we're going to cover on the video today are the markets. We're up big last week, biggest week since April, and even bigger news earlier this week with the positive vaccine news from Pfizer, and we'll talk about where we're going to see that going from here. So we're going to talk about the economic data, mostly focusing on unemployment and some mostly positive news there. And finally, we're going to touch on volatility and both the positive and negative things we see coming up here in the next few weeks that we'll need to continue to keep an eye on. But before we jump into that data for the week, I hope you all had a great weekend. It was a kind of a busy week in the office last week. First, want to congratulate Max Graber, our young client service associate, on passing the Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor designation. A few of you may have seen our blogs from earlier this year with Max, only 18 years old, choosing to come into the career while he's thinking about his college future with COVID and everything going on, and a big step last week in passing that exam and the hard work he put into that. So congrats, Max. Two, while the real elections were going on last week, also, my oldest daughter, Lila, in her fourth grade class was going through, as part of their classwork for the week, as really learning all about the elections and learning about the process, and a lot of the time discussing really what the main issues were that were important to them. And as part of their assignments for the week, they got to pick a project, and Lila decided to make a campaign video on why she would make a good president, as well as the issues that were most important to her. And it was really fun working with her on that, and also thanks again to Max, who did a lot of the cool editing for that video. So if you want to see the full thing, it's going to be posted on our blog this week, so go ahead and check that out on the website. But it was really a lot of fun. And then finally, just want to give a shout out, happy birthday to my mom, who is her birthday on this week on November 9th. So with that, let's jump into the data. First, the markets, as I mentioned, were up big last week. I think a lot of that was around some level of certainty around the elections, and maybe even more to the fact that we weren't going to see a lot of the social unrest a lot of people were expecting potentially on the outcome of that election. So that was positive news overall. However, it does look like we are going to go into a contested election. And so, the last time we did that, back in 2000, the market did see a lot of volatility in the 6 weeks until that was resolved. But we'll see whether we see that same level of volatility this time, depending on, how things shake out. But really, again, the big news so far this week was the positive vaccine results from Pfizer, and it's great news. And so far, it's looking like their vaccine is very effective. And if that is the case, and we see some follow through on that, that should mean good things for the economy and the markets going into 2021. So next, we're going to touch on employment data. And so overall, the numbers were pretty good. However, if we do look at just at the new claims for unemployment, we were still over 1 million if we combine the new state claims with the new pandemic claims. So still a lot of turmoil on a weekly basis for new claims. We are seeing really positive trends on the continuing claims number. However, as we've mentioned on the last number of videos, a good chunk of that we believe really is more due to people falling out of the jobs market altogether and running out of eligibility for these unemployment benefits versus really a positive move in overall growth of employment overall. And you see that in the total claims number as well. So that's still coming down, but most of that is coming from the drop in the state claims on the continuing claims number. And so again, we think a lot of that more is due to people falling out of the jobs market than a real major improvement. We did get the monthly numbers for October last week as well, and those were generally positive as well. We saw over 600,000 of jobs created in October, and the unemployment rate came down to just below 7%. However, if you look at kind of where we were before the pandemic to where we are now, it'll take well over a year still of similar types of numbers of job growth to get back to where we were before the pandemic began. So positive news, but still a long ways to go there. And finally, on the volatility front, again, a lot of things going on with the elections. As I mentioned, it does look like we're going to be going into a contested election. While right now that's not impacting the market so much. If we do start to see court claims moving forward and getting to the Supreme Court, or if we do see recounts happening that end up flipping a state or two, that could start to have some level of impact on the markets, just with the level of uncertainty that would rise from that. But in terms of the vaccine news, on the positive side, that should have a real positive impact, at least short term, as we look through the numbers and find out really all the details about this. But if the vaccine is legitimate, and we do see the possibility of that coming in the next few months, that should mean positive things for the market and the economy into 2021, and we definitely will be positioning portfolios to account for that. But there are still some concerns. We are seeing rising COVID cases across the globe, which are shutting down economies now. So while this vaccine news is positive over the long run, it's still going to mean months before this is really a widespread solution. And we are still seeing some struggles with economies with the level of rising COVID cases now. And we also got to account for what's going to happen with stimulus now. So with a contested election and with a rising market, will there be some less urgency to get a stimulus package done, when the reality is a lot of people that will ultimately benefit from this vaccine over the long run are struggling right now. We haven't had any sort of stimulus in months. Unemployment is still really high, and even the companies that will benefit the most from these vaccines, the airlines and the cruise ships and the hotels, all of those, they've been hemorrhaging cash over this whole year, and can they even make it the next 3 to 6 months before this vaccine is widespread? So still some concerns there. Although overall, again, bottom line, we feel really good about where things might be headed in the future with this positive vaccine news. We're obviously going to have to see the data. We have to finish these trials before we really know for certain. But overall, relatively positive on where we see things right now. Although we're still going to obviously be mindful of the things that could move the markets the other way. But generally speaking, we feel pretty good about where things are headed towards, at least in the near term, into 2021. So with that, as always, if you have any questions on your individual situation, please feel free to reach out. But otherwise, we hope you have a great week, and we look forward to talking to you soon.